He proposed with money, not love. I refused. Then he erased my life. I said no to a billionaire. He made me vanish. But you can't destroy a woman who has nothing left to lose. I loved him. He handed me a blank check. I said no. Then he broke me. But he forgot broken things can still cut. He wanted to buy my heart. I tore the check and walked away. Then he took my job, my home, my name. He thought I was done. I was just angry enough to fight. The blank check was his offer. My refusal was his nightmare. He chased me for months. He never realized I was leading him to his end. My name is Jennifer Holloway. My friends call me Jenny. And I am about to tell you a story that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. It's a story about a blank check, a proposal, and the most terrible kind of love. You might think you know how this goes. You might think I was crazy for saying no. But wait, please, just wait until you hear what came next. I was 26 years old. I lived in a small apartment in Nashville, Tennessee, that smelled like cinnamon candles and old books. I worked as a night nurse at St. Thomas Hospital. My life was simple. I drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dent on the passenger side. My biggest luxury was a $15 bottle of red wine on my days off. I was not rich. I was not poor. I was just there, floating, trying to find a reason to get up in the morning that wasn't just my job. Then I met Marcus Sterling. And Marcus Sterling was not a man you simply met. He was a man who happened to you. Like a storm, like a car accident, like a miracle you don't believe in until it breaks your windshield. He was 33, the youngest son of the Sterling family. You've heard the name. Sterling Hotels, Sterling Airlines, Sterling everything. His face was on the cover of business magazines, usually standing in front of a glass building with his arms crossed, looking like he had just swallowed a secret. He was handsome in a sharp way. Dark hair, light eyes, a jaw that could cut glass. But it was his voice that got me. Low, slow, like honey poured over gravel. We met in the emergency room at 3 in the morning. He had cut his hand on a broken champagne glass at some charity gala. He walked in with no security, no entourage, just a bloody towel wrapped around his palm and a smile that said he found the whole situation amusing. I was the one who stitched him up. He didn't complain, didn't flinch. He just watched me work, and after a minute he said, "You have kind hands." I laughed. I actually laughed, because who talks like that? But I said, "Thank you. You have a deep cut. Try not to punch any more chandeliers." He grinned. "It was a door frame. The chandelier is next week." I thought that would be it. A funny story to tell my coworker, Diane. "Hey, I stitched up a billionaire tonight." He was weird. But the next day, a flower delivery came to the nurse's station. 3 dozen white roses. The card said, "For the hands that fixed mine." MS, Diane looked at me like I had just grown a second head. "Jenny, who is MS?" "Nobody," I said, but my heart was doing something strange. It was tapping a rhythm I didn't recognize. A week later, he came back, not as a patient. He just showed up in the waiting room with 2 cups of coffee and a brown paper bag. He said, "I don't know if you like donuts, but I guessed." I should have said no. I should have said, "Mr. Sterling, you can't just show up at my workplace." But I was tired. It had been a long shift. A child had died in my arms that morning, and I had cried in the supply closet for 10 minutes. And here was this man, holding cheap coffee and glazed donuts, looking at me like I was the only real thing in the room. So I sat with him. We talked for an hour. He told me about his father, a cold man who measured success in zeros. He told me about his brother, the golden child who ran the airline. He told me about the pressure to be perfect, to marry the right girl from the right family, to never embarrass the Sterling name. Then he looked at me and said, "But I don't want right, I want you." I almost choked on my donut. The next 3 months were like a dream I was afraid to wake up from. Marcus pursued me like I was the last treasure on earth. He remembered everything. My favorite color was green, so he sent me a scarf from Ireland. I mentioned I'd never seen the ocean, so he flew me to Malibu for a weekend. He told me I was beautiful without makeup. He held my hand in public. He introduced me to his friends, who were polite but confused. You could see them thinking, why her, a nurse, a nobody? But Marcus didn't care, or so I thought. I fell in love with him, of course I did. He was the sun, and I had been living in the shade. He made me feel seen. He made me feel special. He made me feel like my ordinary life was just a waiting room for him to arrive. But there were cracks. Small ones at first. He didn't like it when I worked late. He called my job a hobby. He bought me a new coat without asking, and when I said I liked my old one, he laughed and said, "That's cute, but you deserve better." He corrected my grammar once. He told me to speak more carefully around his mother. I ignored it. Love makes you stupid. Love makes you think that the red flags are just colorful banners waving in a parade that belongs to you. Then came the dinner. It was a Friday night. He had rented out the top floor of a restaurant downtown, candles everywhere. A violin player in the corner. I wore a green dress he had bought for me. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than my car. We ate steak and drank wine that tasted like berries and money. After dessert, he put down his fork. He looked at me with those light eyes, and for a moment, I saw something soft underneath the sharpness. Something almost human. "Jenny," he said, "I love you." My heart swelled. "I love you too, Marcus." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath stopped. This was it. The moment every girl pretends she doesn't dream about. But he didn't open the box. Instead, he put it on the table and then reached into his other pocket. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it and slid it across the white tablecloth toward me. It was a check. A blank check, signed by Marcus Sterling. No amount written. I stared at it. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Marcus leaned forward. His voice was low and smooth. "Write any number you want, Jenny. 1,000,000, 10,000,000. Whatever you need. That's my gift to you. And in exchange, you become my wife. You leave the hospital. You stop working those 12-hour shifts. You stop coming home smelling like disinfectant and sadness. You become Mrs. Marcus Sterling. You live in my world, my rules, my schedule, my life. I will take care of you, completely. All you have to do is say yes, and write the number." I felt the room tilt. I looked at the check, then at the velvet box, then at his face. He was smiling, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was a confident one, the smile of a man who had never been told no. "Marcus," I said slowly, "are you proposing to me with a blank check?" "I'm proposing to you with freedom," he said. "Financial freedom. You never have to worry about money again. Isn't that what everyone wants?" I picked up the check. It was real. The paper was thick. His signature was sharp and dark. I could have written anything. I could have bought a house, paid off my mom's medical bills, traveled the world. But something inside me went cold, like a door slamming shut in a drafty house. "Marcus," I said, putting the check down, "I don't want your money." His smile flickered. "Every woman wants money, Jenny." "No, every woman wants to be loved, really loved, not bought." He laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. "You think I'm buying you? I'm giving you a choice." "A choice?" I stood up. My chair scraped the floor. The violin player stopped. The waiters froze. "A blank check is not a proposal. It's a transaction. You're not asking me to marry you. You're asking me to sell myself." Marcus stood up too. He was taller than me. He used that height. He stepped closer. "Jenny, sit down. You're making a scene." "No," I said, and my voice was shaking, but it was loud. "You're making a scene. You think you can just write a number and own me? I am not a hotel. I am not an airline. I am a person, and I refuse." I picked up the blank check. I looked at it one last time, then I tore it in half, then in quarters. Then I let the pieces fall onto the white tablecloth like sad confetti. Marcus's face changed. The softness disappeared. The light in his eyes went dark. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just looked at me like I had insulted his bloodline. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'll regret it with my dignity." I grabbed my purse. I walked out of that restaurant. I didn't run. I walked. Down the stairs, past the hostess, out the glass doors, into the cool Nashville night. And when I got to my old Honda, I sat in the driver's seat and cried. Not because I was sad, but because I knew I had just lost something I never really had. That should have been the end of the story. Girl says no to rich man. Girl walks away. Girl lives happily ever after, right? No, that was just the beginning. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. I went back to work. I stitched up cuts, held hands of scared patients, drank bad coffee. Diane asked what happened with Marcus. I said, "It didn't work out." She hugged me and said, "His loss, honey." But I felt him, like a shadow in the corner of my eye. I started getting hang-up calls at 3 in the morning, then 4, then 5. The number was blocked. The first week, I thought it was a wrong number. The second week, I knew it was him. Then the letters started. Not love letters, not hate letters. They were typed on thick cream paper, no return address. Each one had one sentence. First letter, you don't say no to me. Second, I always get what I want. Third, you will come back. Fourth, you will beg. I took the letters to the police. A tired officer named Detective Morales looked at them, sighed, and said, "Miss Holloway, has he threatened you physically?" "Not yet," I said. "Then there's not much we can do. Keep a log. Change your locks, call us if he shows up." I changed my locks. I bought pepper spray. I started walking to my car with my keys between my fingers. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself Marcus Sterling was a billionaire. He had better things to do than terrorize a night nurse. I was wrong. 3 weeks after the proposal, I lost my job. The hospital administrator called me into his office. He was a pale man with a nervous mustache. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "Jennifer, we've received several complaints about your behavior. Patients say you've been rude, unprofessional. One family claimed you were on your phone during a critical moment." My mouth fell open. "That's not true. I've never—" He held up a hand. "We also received an anonymous letter claiming you've been stealing medication, painkillers. We have to investigate. You're suspended without pay pending review." "That's a lie." I stood up. "Someone is setting me up." He finally looked at me. His eyes were sad. "I'm sorry, Jennifer, but we have to follow protocol." I walked out of that hospital in a daze. I drove home. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. First domino. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and cracked the screen. That was the pattern. Every week, something else broke. My landlord called to say my lease was being terminated due to complaints from neighbors. I had never even talked to my neighbors. Then my bank account was frozen for suspicious activity. I spent 6 hours on the phone trying to fix it. Then my car was repossessed. The tow truck driver showed up at 6 in the morning. He handed me a paper that said I had missed 3 payments. I hadn't missed a single one. I knew it was Marcus. I knew it with every bone in my body, but I couldn't prove it. He was too smart. He used layers of shell companies, anonymous complaints, fake paperwork. He was destroying my life from the inside out, and he never once touched me. I called Detective Morales again. He came to my apartment. He listened. He took notes. Then he said, "Miss Holloway, I believe you, but without evidence linking Mr. Sterling directly, my hands are tied. This man has more lawyers than I have bullets. You need to disappear. Go somewhere he can't find you." "Where?" I whispered. "He's everywhere." Morales gave me a card, a women's shelter outside of Knoxville. He said, "They'll help you start over. New name, new city. You have to become someone else." I looked at the card. Then I looked at my empty apartment. The only thing left was a single white rose on the kitchen counter. No note, no sender, just the rose. I packed one bag. I left Nashville that night on a Greyhound bus. I didn't tell anyone, not even Diane. I just vanished. The shelter was a rundown house in the middle of nowhere. The women there had stories worse than mine. Bruises, broken bones. Children they had to hide. I felt guilty for being there. Marcus hadn't hit me. He hadn't locked me in a room. He had just erased me. But the counselor, a kind woman named Gloria, set me straight. She sat me down in a plastic chair and said, "Honey, abuse isn't always a fist. Sometimes it's a blank check. Sometimes it's a man who can't stand to hear the word no. You belong here. You're safe here." For 2 months, I became someone else. I cut my hair short and dyed it brown. I got a job at a diner called the Rusty Spoon. I waited tables. I made $12 an hour plus tips. I lived in a tiny room above a garage. I had no phone, no computer, no social media. I was a ghost, and for 2 months I thought I had escaped. Then one night I was wiping down the counter at the diner. It was almost midnight. The only other person there was the cook, a grumpy old man named Earl who never talked. The bell above the door jingled. I looked up, and my blood turned to ice water. Marcus Sterling walked in. He was wearing jeans and a simple gray sweater. No suit, no entourage. He looked almost normal, but his eyes, those light eyes, they locked onto mine like missiles. He walked to the counter, sat on the stool directly in front of me. He smiled. It was the same smile from the restaurant, the confident one. "Hi, Jenny," he said. "Or should I call you Sarah now? That's the name on your name tag." I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the rag. "Don't be scared," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to give you one more chance." "Get out," I whispered. He tilted his head. "You've been hiding for 2 months, living in a garage, wiping tables for tips. Is this really better than what I offered you? A blank check, Jenny. A life. You could be in Paris right now. Instead, you're in a diner that smells like old grease." "I would rather smell old grease for the rest of my life than belong to you." His smile faltered. Just for a second, then he leaned forward. His voice dropped so low only I could hear. "You don't understand, Jenny. This isn't over. It will never be over. I have more money than God. I can follow you anywhere. I can make sure every job you get, you lose. Every friend you make, they leave. Every town you run to, I'll be there. The only way out is to say yes. Write a number, any number, and come home." I looked at him. This beautiful, terrible man, and in that moment I stopped being afraid. The fear didn't go away, but it moved over. It made room for something else. Anger. Cold, sharp, patient anger. I picked up the rag, I wiped the counter. Then I looked him in the eye and said, "You want me to write a number? Fine, I'll write a number, but not on your check, on mine." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" I smiled. It was not a nice smile. "You'll see, Marcus. You'll see." He stared at me for a long time, then he stood up. He put a $100 bill on the counter. "For the coffee I didn't drink," he said, and he walked out. The bell jingled, the door closed. And I stood there, alone with Earl the cook, who hadn't looked up once. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my little room above the garage and I thought about every letter, every phone call, every time he made me lose something. I thought about the blank check, the way he thought money could buy anything, anyone, and I decided to teach him a lesson. Not a revenge of violence, not a revenge of screaming or crying, a revenge of intelligence, a revenge of patience, a revenge of turning his own weapon against him. Marcus Sterling believed money was power. He believed he could buy love, loyalty, silence. He believed a blank check was the ultimate gift. So I was going to show him what a blank check really costs. I spent the next 6 months planning. I didn't run anymore. I stayed in Knoxville. I kept my job at the diner. But at night, I studied. I went to the public library and read everything I could about the Sterling Empire. I learned about their hotels, their airlines, their investments. I learned about the family's weak spots. The cousin who embezzled money. The aunt who was in a secret rehab. The father's heart condition. The brother's gambling problem. I learned that Marcus was not as powerful as he seemed. He was the youngest son. He didn't control the company. He just had a trust fund. A big one, but his real power was bluff. He acted like a king, but he was really just a prince with a loud voice. And I learned about his one true weakness. He was desperate for his father's approval. Old man Sterling, Arthur Sterling, was a ruthless businessman. He respected only one thing: winners. Marcus had never won anything on his own. Everything was given to him. The blank check was just a symbol of that. He had never earned $1 in his life. So I decided to beat him at his own game. Not with money, with information. I created a new identity. Not Sarah the waitress. Someone smarter, someone invisible. I opened a virtual mailbox. I got a prepaid phone. I started making small, anonymous donations to a journalist named Rebecca Tran, who had been investigating the Sterling family for years. She was a bulldog. She hated corruption, and she had no idea who was sending her tips. I sent her the first tip 6 weeks after Marcus visited the diner. It was about Marcus's brother, Daniel, and his secret gambling debts. $3 million, hidden from the family. I had found the evidence in a public court filing that no one had bothered to read. Rebecca Tran wrote a story. It ran on the front page of a major business website. The Sterling family panicked. Daniel was forced to step down from the airline board. Arthur Sterling had a minor heart attack. Marcus flew to New York to do damage control. I watched it all from my little room, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction. Just the cold, steady beat of my own heart. Then I sent the second tip. This one was about Marcus himself. Years ago, he had been accused of harassment by a former assistant. The family had paid her a settlement and signed a non-disclosure agreement. I found the assistant. Her name was Kelly. She lived in Ohio now. She was scared to talk, but I wrote her a letter, not as Jenny. As a friend, I said, I know what he did to you. I know he took your silence, but you don't have to be silent forever. He doesn't own you. Kelly called Rebecca Tran. She told her story. The article came out 2 weeks later. The headline was, Sterling Heir's Secret Payout, Harassment Allegations Hidden for Years. The internet exploded. Sterling Hotel's stock dropped 12% in one day. Marcus released a statement denying everything. His lawyers threatened to sue, but the damage was done. His golden image was cracked, and I was just getting started. I sent tip after tip. A tax evasion scheme in the airline division. A hotel in Miami that was built on land stolen from a poor community. A shell company in the Caymans that hid millions from investors. None of it was illegal enough to put anyone in jail, but all of it was ugly. All of it was embarrassing. And all of it was traced back to Marcus or his family. Within 4 months, the Sterling name was mud. The board asked Marcus to take a leave of absence. His father stopped taking his calls. His friends disappeared. He was alone. And then I made my final move. I wrote him a letter, not typed, handwritten in my own handwriting. I sent it to his personal address, the one he had used to send me the roses. It said, Dear Marcus, you gave me a blank check. You said I could write any number. I thought about it for a long time, and I decided on a number. 0, that's what you have now. 0 respect. 0 power, 0 people who love you. You tried to buy me. But you forgot something important. I was never for sale. You taught me that money can't buy happiness. But you know what else money can't buy? Peace. The peace I feel right now, writing this letter from my little room above a garage, knowing that you will read it and feel nothing but emptiness. You wanted me to beg. I never did. You wanted me to break. I didn't. You wanted me to write a number. So here it is. 0. The cost of a man who thinks love is a transaction. Goodbye, Marcus. I hope you learn to become a person instead of a price tag, but I won't hold my breath. Jenny Holloway, not Sarah, not your anything, just Jenny. I mailed the letter on a Tuesday. On Thursday, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. It was Marcus. His voice was different, not smooth, not confident. It was raw, hoarse, like he had been screaming. Jenny, he said, was it you? Was what me? I asked. Everything, the articles, the leaks. The destruction, was it you? I paused. I could have lied. I could have denied it, but I didn't. You told me I would beg, I said. You told me you always get what you want. Well, Marcus, here's what I want. I want you to know what it feels like to lose everything. Not because someone took it from you, but because you never deserved it in the first place. He was quiet for a long time, then he said something I didn't expect. I loved you. I closed my eyes. My heart ached, not for him, for the girl I used to be, the one who believed in his honey voice and his light eyes. No, Marcus, I said softly. You loved owning me. There's a difference. He started crying. I could hear it. The sound of a man who had never been told no, finally hearing the truth. He sobbed once, then twice. Then he whispered, I don't know how to be anything else. And in that moment, I felt something I didn't expect. Not pity, not forgiveness, but a sad kind of understanding. He was broken long before he met me. The blank check wasn't an insult, it was all he knew. Then learn, I said, or don't, but leave me alone. I hung up. I never heard from him again. It's been 3 years now. I live in a small town in Oregon. I still work as a nurse. I have a garden. I have a cat named Earl after the cook who never looked up. I have a life that is mine. No blank checks. No shadows. Marcus Sterling lost everything. The family business was sold to a foreign conglomerate. His father died of a second heart attack, alone in a hospital that didn't even have a Sterling wing. His brother went to prison for the gambling debts he couldn't pay. And Marcus, last I heard, he was living in a rented condo in Florida, trying to launch a podcast no one listens to. Some say he looks empty. Some say he drinks too much. Some say he still talks about me. I don't think about him much anymore. But sometimes, late at night, when the rain is tapping on my window, I remember the girl who tore up a blank check. I remember how scared she was, how alone, how she thought she had nothing, but she had everything. She had herself. Sometimes I think about the blank check. I think about what would have happened if I had said yes. I would be rich. I would be miserable. I would be owned. Instead, I am poor. I am happy. I am free. And that, my friends, is the best revenge of all. The story you just heard is mine, but it could be yours too. If someone ever hands you a blank check and asks you to write your price, remember this: your soul is not for sale, your dignity is not a number. And the person who truly loves you will never ask you to prove your worth in dollars. They will just hold your hand and say, "You are enough." Thank you for listening. My name is Jennifer Holloway, and I refused.